Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to tackle a really common source of chaos in software and uncover a design pattern that brings some serious order to that mess. We're going to see how treating a simple action, like a click, as a physical object can totally transform your applications.
All right, let's dive in with a super simple, everyday scenario that, has a lot more to do with software design than you'd probably think. Just ordering food at a really busy restaurant.
I mean, seriously, just think about it for a second. You've got all these moving parts, right? Customers are trying to decide what to eat, waiters are rushing back and forth, and the cooks in the kitchen are juggling a dozen different dishes at once. Without a solid system, it would be an absolute disaster.
So it all starts right here, with the customer. They know exactly what they want. But here's the thing, they don't just wander into the kitchen and start yelling at the chef. No, there's a process.
This is where the waiter comes in. They're our essential go-between. They listen to what the customer wants and act as the communication channel to the kitchen. And this is so crucial because it decouples the customer, the person making the request, from the kitchen staff, the people who are actually going to fulfill it.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. That request, I'll have the steak medium rare, it actually becomes a physical thing, the order slip. That little piece of paper has all the information needed to get the job done, and it exists completely separate from the person who made the order.
The cook can now just grab that slip from the queue. They don't need to know which customer it's for, they don't care which waiter took the order. All they need to know is how to read that ticket and follow the instructions. The request and the execution are totally separate worlds.
So, let's bring this back to code. This whole restaurant system is a brilliant illustration of a super common problem in software. We often build things where the part asking for something is directly and messily tied to the part that's doing it. And that leads to tangled, inflexible code. Picture this. You're building a simple text editor. You add a copy button, and it's so tempting to just stuff all the code that does the copying right inside that button's click event. I mean, it seems easy at first, but trust me, it creates huge headaches down the road.
This is what leads to that tangled mess. Your user interface, your buttons, your menus, becomes rigidly locked to your main application logic. So what happens if you want a keyboard shortcut to also do a copy? Well, you got to duplicate the code. And trying to implement something cool like an undo feature? Oh, just forget it. It's practically impossible.
And this is exactly where our restaurant analogy comes to the rescue in the form of the command design pattern. It gives us a super clean solution to this exact problem of tight coupling.
So the big idea is this. Just like that order slip in the restaurant, we are going to wrap up an action, or a request, into its very own object. The action itself literally becomes a piece of data that we can hold on to and pass around.
Okay, let's break down the different players here. At the very heart of the pattern is the command itself. This is our digital order slip. So instead of just calling a function, we create, say, a copy command object that holds everything it needs to perform that copy action.
Next up, we've got the receiver. This is our cook. The receiver is the object that actually does all the heavy lifting. In our text editor example, the editor itself is the receiver because it's the one that knows how to select text and talk to the clipboard.
And who tells the receiver what to do? That's the invoker, our waiter. Now this could be a button, a menu item, a keyboard shortcut, whatever. The key thing is the invoker has no idea how to copy text. It only knows that it's holding a command object, and its only job is to yell execute when it gets triggered.
And finally, the client puts it all together. The client is like our customer. It's the part of your application that does the initial setup. It creates the copy command object, tells it that the text editor is the receiver, and then it hands that whole command over to the button, which is our invoker.
All right, now for the really fun part. Because we've neatly separated all these roles, we suddenly unlock some incredibly powerful new abilities that were an absolute nightmare to implement before.
Because every single action is now a self-contained object, we can start treating them like building blocks. We can queue them up to run later, we can send them over a network to run on a totally different machine, or, and this is the real game changer, we can store them in a list to create a complete history of everything the user has done.
And this is how that undo feature suddenly becomes almost laughably easy to implement. Every time a user does something, we just push that command object onto a history stack. When they hit undo, we just pop the last command off the stack and call it special undo method. It is that clean, that elegant, and that powerful.
Now look, it's not all magic. Like any really powerful tool, this pattern isn't free.
It comes with some trade-offs, and we need to be aware of them before we start using it for everything.
So on the plus side, you get this incredible flexibility and a really beautiful separation of your code's concerns. But the downside is that you are adding another layer of abstraction. For every single action in your app, you might need to create a whole new class. For a really simple, tiny task, that can definitely feel like overkill.
So if there's one thing to remember, it's this. You're transforming abstract actions into concrete objects that you can actually store, manage, and manipulate. You're taking control over not just what happens, but how and when it happens.
This simple shift in thinking, from just calling a function to creating a tangible object for every action, it just opens up a whole world of possibilities. So the next time you're staring at some tangled code, don't just write another function. Think like a restaurant and ask yourself, what would the order slip look like?